What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're doing a Qliphort deck profile. So I'm really excited to show you guys because this deck is a great pendulum deck that makes great use of having skill drain back at 3. We have an insanely powerful boss monster, which is a Qliphort Towers, that we're going to be turboing out in this build. So I'm really excited to show you guys this deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards to the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Qliphort Scout. This card is a great card that has the ability that you can't special summon monsters except for Qli monsters, and this effect cannot be negated. And then once per turn, you can pay 800 light points to add a Qli card from your deck to your hand, being a great 3-of in this deck to be able to give you all those different searches. We then play 2 copies of Monolith. Monolith is a great card as a 2-of because you can get all sorts of different draws during the end phase, because it has the ability that you can't special summon monsters except for Qli monsters, and this effect cannot be negated, but you can once per turn during the end phase, if you tribute summon this turn, you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of Qli monsters you tributed for the tribute summon this turn, which is a great effect because usually you're going to be tributing 3 monsters to summon towers out to your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Helix. Helix is a great 3-of because this card is super easy to summon to your field. Now, all of your Qlis that have a scale of 9 that are effect monsters have the ability that you can't special summon monsters except for Qli monsters, and this effect cannot be negated. And then all monsters your opponent control lose 300 attack. And all of your Qli monsters that are effect monsters besides towers share the ability that you can normal summon this card without tributing, and if this card is normal summoned without tributing or special summon, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. And if this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by the activated effects of any monster whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level. And then all of your Qli monsters get different effects for being tributed, which is a very interesting thing for this deck. Now, if this card is tributed, you get to target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it, which is this card's unique effect. We then play 3 copies of Carrier. All of your scale 1s share the ability that you cannot special summon except for Qli monsters, and this effect cannot be negated, and all Qli monsters you control gain 300 attack, giving you that 600 gap between yours and your opponent's monsters, because with the 9s, you're going to be making your opponent lose 300 attack, and with the 1s, you're going to be boosting yours by 300 attack. Now, if this card is tributed, you can target 1 monster on the field and return it to the hand, which is a great effect to be able to just give you a compulse. We then play 2 copies of Qliphort Disc. This card is really good because it has the ability that when this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Qli monster, you can special summon out 2 Qli monsters from your deck, but destroy them during the end phase, which is a great effect for your Qliphort Disc. I feel like 2 is perfectly fine for this card. I did consider playing it at 3, but for right now, 2 is totally fine. We then play a single copy of Qliphort Stealth that has the ability that basically when this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Qli monsters, you can target a card on the field and return to the hand, and your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to this card's activation, which is a very good effect to be able to just bounce a card as a speed spell for. I then play just a single copy of Shell. Shell has the ability that if this card is normal summoned without tributing, or if you tribute a Qli monster, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if it attacks a defensive monster, you can like piercing damage, which is a pretty good effect on a 2800 attack point monster. We then play for the last 2 monsters. We're going to be playing 2 copies of Towers. Towers is insanely good. Qliphort Towers has the ability it can't be special summoned and requires 3 Qli tributes to normal summon this card. And if this card is normal summon or set, it's unaffected by any spells or traps and the activated effects from any monster whose original level and rank is lower than this card's current level. And all special summon monsters lose 500 attack and defense, and then once per turn, you can make your opponent send 1 monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard, and it's their choice what they send, which is a great effect. This card is really, really good if you activate skill drain after it's on the field, because this card is unaffected by those spells and traps, which is an insanely powerful effect. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance, because you don't really use the extra deck all that much, except for occasionally summoning out your copy of Qliphort Genius to your side of the field, so you don't really need the extra deck all that much, which makes this deck a little bit more budget, which is super, super helpful, because you can play just about anything you want in the extra deck. We play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. You don't special summon all that much in this deck. You're going to be usually normal summoning, tribute summoning. Occasionally, you will pendulum summon in the deck, but this card is a really good card, because it lets you look at the top 3 of your deck and then add one of those top 3s to your hand, which is super, super helpful. We then play 3 copies of Summoner's Art, which adds our copies of our Scout or Monolith from our deck to your hand, because they are normal monsters, but they are pendulum monsters. So you can use your copies of Summoner's Art to be able to search them, because they are level 5s. We play 3 copies of Sacrifice. Sacrifice is an insanely good equip spell, because it has the ability that you equip only to a Qli monster and it gains 300 attack and can't be destroyed by battle, and the equip monster can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Qli monster. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add any Qli monster from your deck to your hand. So you're going to be using this card a lot in this deck to normal summon a Qli to your side of the field, equip it with this, boost it up by 300, and then during the next turn, tribute it for a copy of Disc, Stealth, or Shell, or go into a copy of Qliphort Towers, which is really good, which can be searched off this card. We then play a single copy of Laser Clip. I just play a single copy of this card because it has the ability during the main phase, you can normal summon 1 Qli monster in addition to your normal summoner set, which comes in handy a lot in this deck, and it is a searchable card. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Lose One Turn. Lose One Turn is a good 2 of in the deck. I did consider playing it at 3, but with Skill Drain at 3, I feel like 2 is fine in this build. It has the ability of activating this card only if you currently control no special summon monsters, which we're normally just going to normal summon our cards anyways. And it also has the ability that when a monster is face up on the field, negate its effects during the turn that monster was special summoned. And if its effect monster is special summon in attack position, you change it to defense, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Skill Drain. This card makes the deck insane. I love this card in this deck. It is so good to be able to just activate Skill Drain and be able to normal summon out your monsters to your side of the field, because their effects in the hand let you normal summon them, and this card just shuts down your opponent's entire play. So this card is a definite 3 of in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute is really good because destroying the board can come in very handy for us if our opponent establishes an insane board before we can summon out our copies of our Qli monsters, or if we do need to use Torrential Tribute to slow the game down just a little bit by blowing out the opponent's board. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment is here just to basically stop what we need to stop, because it has the ability that when a monster would be summoned or a spell or trap would be activated, you can pay half your life points to negate the activation if you destroy that card. My logic on this card is you always have half to pay unless you've lost the game, which is why I play this card as a 3 of in this build, and it stops so much stuff. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. Now keep in mind about the extra deck, it is an extravagance build. So you can change out just about any single card that you want in the extra deck except for your copies of Qliphort Genius if you're trying to go for a budget build of this deck. So let's get straight into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Qliphort Genius. Qliphort Genius is really a great card, and it's a card that you're going to be using all the time in the extra deck, because it has the ability that it takes any 2 machine monsters to summon this card, and this Link Summon card is unaffected by spell or trap effects and the activated effects of other Link monsters. And then once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, on each player's field, except this card, and both of those cards have their effects negated until the end of the turn. And when 2 monsters are special summoned at the same time to zones this card points to, you can add a level 5 or higher machine monster from your deck to your hand. So basically, if you pendulum summon your Qliphort monsters to your side of the field into the zones this card points to, you're going to get the ability to add your copy of Towers to your hand that you can then normal summon out using this card and your other 2 Qli monsters as tribute. So this card is a card that I highly recommend as a 3 of, but everything else is basically tech and toolbox. We then play 2 copies of Draco Masters of Tenyi. This is the only other card in this deck that I do kind of recommend that you play in the extra deck as a 2 of, because this card has the ability that you can use a Link monster to summon this card, but it has to take including a Link monster to summon this card, because this card is really good with normal monsters, it can be destroyed by battle with an effect monster, and if you control no other effect monsters, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters that you control and are in your graveyard. So this card comes in a little bit handy for the link arrows, which is why I'm playing it at 2. I then play a single copy of Access Code because you can sometimes get pops in this deck. It doesn't matter if you banish it with your copy of Extravagance, so you don't have to play this card if you don't want to. You can play Boral Sword or Boral Load or even Appaloosa if you do want to. We then play 2 copies of Unicorn. Unicorn spin stuff, so that's why I play this card as a 2 of. 2 copies of IP Masquerena. The 2 copies of IP are really good because this card lets you link summon during your opponent's turn, and also but letting you link summon during your opponent's turn comes in handy because you can go into Unicorn, and also the link zones are very good with this card. We then play 2 copies of Infinity. Infinity is here because you can go into it very easily with your copies of your Scouts and your Monoliths, because basically you make your copy of Nova first, then go into Infinity to establish a negate. I don't go into it all that often, but it's there just in case you want to. And then a single copy of Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is insanely good because it can board wipe, so that's why I play it as a 1 of in here, because if you attack with like an Infinity or a copy of your Nova, you can then use this card and board wipe, which is very handy. Now, something I did consider is putting in a copy of either like a Barbaroid or something like that for the copy of Cyber Dragon Nova, just in case my opponent interrupts me in the process of going for my copy of Infinity. Now, that is an option for you guys if you do want to tack that card in over a copy of Access Code, over one of the Draco Masters. Totally up to you. The extra deck is very, very toolbox and can be changed out basically besides these 3 copies of Qliphort Genius while you're playing your copies of Extravagance. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play with. It's very, very budget to actually pick up Qliphorts, except for the skill drains, which hopefully get a reprint pretty soon. You can play all sorts of different floodgates in this deck, and it is a really, really fun deck to play with. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.